The power of a warning. Lessons from Pilate's wife. In the biblical narrative of Jesus' trial, a brief but significant episode involves Pilate's wife and a warning she received in a dream. This incident, though often overshadowed by the larger events of the Passion, provides profound lessons about divine communication and human response. Through a three-point exploration, we will delve into the source, content, and response to this warning, drawing insights that remain relevant to our lives today. The source of the warning. Dreams hold a notable place in the Bible, often serving as conduits for divine messages. Pilate's wife's experience underscores how God can use dreams to convey critical warnings, illustrating that God's communication can reach us through various channels, irrespective of our roles or backgrounds. The content of the warning. The message given to Pilate's wife was clear and urgent. Have nothing to do with that just man. This warning highlighted the innocence of Jesus and the severity of the situation. Ignoring such divine messages can lead to significant consequences, emphasizing the need to pay close attention to spiritual guidance. The response to the warning. Pilate's reaction to his wife's warning reveals the complexities of human decision-making in the face of divine counsel. His choice and its aftermath serve as a cautionary tale about the importance of heeding God's warnings. Reflecting on this, we are reminded to be vigilant and responsive to divine guidance in our lives. The scripture that frames this discussion is found in Matthew 27 verse 19, in KJV. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent to him, saying, "Have nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him." Through this exploration, we aim to uncover the layers of meaning within Pilate's wife's warning and understand the broader implications of divine messages and our responses to them. The source of the warning. Explore the significance of dreams in the Bible. Dreams play a significant role throughout the Bible, often serving as a medium through which God communicates with his people. In biblical times, dreams were commonly understood as divine messages, offering guidance, warnings, and insights into God's plans. Here are a few key aspects of the significance of dreams in the Bible. Dreams as divine communication. 1. Examples from the Old Testament. Jacob's ladder. In Genesis 28 verses 12 to 15, Jacob dreams of a ladder reaching to heaven with angels ascending and descending on it. This dream reaffirms God's covenant with Jacob, promising him land, descendants, and divine protection. Joseph's dreams. In Genesis 37 verses 5 to 10, Joseph has dreams predicting his future rise to power and the eventual bowing of his family before him. These dreams set the stage for his journey to Egypt and his role in saving his family during a famine. Pharaoh's dreams. In Genesis 41, Pharaoh's dreams of 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows, and 7 healthy ears of grain and 7 thin ears of grain, are interpreted by Joseph as foretelling 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. This leads to Joseph's elevation and the preservation of Egypt and his family. 2. Examples from the New Testament. Joseph, husband of Mary. In Matthew 1 verses 20 to 24, Joseph is visited by an angel in a dream, instructing him to take Mary as his wife because her child is conceived by the Holy Spirit. Another dream warns him to flee to Egypt to protect Jesus from Herod's massacre. Matthew 2 verse 13. Pilate's wife. In Matthew 27 verse 19, Pilate's wife receives a disturbing dream about Jesus, warning her husband to have nothing to do with condemning him. Characteristics of biblical dreams. 1. Clarity and urgency. Biblical dreams often convey messages with striking clarity and a sense of urgency. They demand immediate attention and action, as seen in the dreams of Joseph, both in Genesis and the New Testament, and Pilate's wife. 2. Symbolism and interpretation. Many dreams in the Bible are rich in symbolism and require interpretation, often provided by a prophet or a person with the gift of understanding, such as Daniel interpreting Nebuchadnezzar's dreams, Daniel 2 and 4, or Joseph interpreting the dreams of Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, Genesis 40. Purpose of dreams and God's plan. 1. Guidance and direction. Dreams often provide divine guidance, directing individuals to take specific actions that align with God's will. For example, Joseph is guided to protect Mary and Jesus through his dreams. 2. Warnings and protection. Dreams serve as warnings to protect individuals from impending danger or from making grave mistakes. Pilate's wife's dream is a prime example of a warning meant to prevent the unjust condemnation of Jesus. 3. Revelation of God's will. Through dreams, God reveals his plans and purposes, often foretelling future events that are crucial for his divine plan. Joseph's dreams in Genesis reveal God's plan for his rise to power and the preservation of his family. In conclusion, the significance of dreams in the Bible cannot be overstated. They are a profound means of divine communication, offering guidance, warnings, and revelations that shape the course of biblical history. Pilate's wife's dream, warning her husband about Jesus, underscores the gravity of divine messages conveyed through dreams. Understanding the biblical context of dreams enriches our comprehension of how God interacts with humanity and the importance of heeding his warnings. Pilate's wife receiving a divine message through a dream. The account of Pilate's wife receiving a divine message through a dream is a fascinating and significant event recorded in the New Testament. This episode is brief but rich with implications about the role of divine intervention, the nature of dreams, and the dynamics of moral decision-making. Context of the event. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, was presiding over the trial of Jesus. Amidst the accusations and demands for Jesus' crucifixion, Pilate's wife experiences a troubling dream. She sends a message to Pilate, urging him not to involve himself in condemning Jesus. "Have nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him." Matthew 27 verse 19 NKJV. The nature of the dream. 1. Divine origin. The content and impact of the dream indicate it was of divine origin. Pilate's wife refers to Jesus as a just man, a recognition of his innocence and righteousness. The dream's divine source is implied by its powerful effect on her and the urgency of her message. 2. Emotional intensity. The phrase "suffered many things" suggests the dream was intensely vivid and distressing. It was strong enough to compel her to intervene in her husband's proceedings, highlighting the severity of the warning. Significance of Pilate's wife as the recipient. 1. Unexpected messenger. In a patriarchal society where women were often not involved in public or judicial matters, the fact that Pilate's wife receives and delivers this warning is noteworthy. It underscores that God can use anyone, regardless of their social status, to convey his messages. 2. Moral conscience. Pilate's wife's intervention introduces a voice of moral conscience into the trial. Her dream and subsequent warning serve as a divine appeal for justice and righteousness amidst the political and social pressures Pilate faces. The content and implications of the warning. 1. Recognition of Jesus' innocence. By referring to Jesus as a just man, the dream reveals divine acknowledgement of Jesus' innocence. This reinforces the notion that the trial and condemnation of Jesus were unjust. 2. Urgency of action. The immediacy with which Pilate's wife sends her message indicates the critical nature of the warning. It suggests that ignoring the dream could lead to grave consequences. Pilate's response to the warning. 1. Conflict and hesitation. Pilate's receipt of his wife's message adds to his internal conflict. He is already wary of condemning Jesus, whom he finds no fault in, and his wife's warning intensifies his hesitation. 2. Decision and consequences. Despite his wife's warning and his own misgivings, Pilate ultimately succumbs to the crowd's demands. This decision leads to Jesus' crucifixion, a pivotal event in Christian theology. Pilate's failure to heed the divine warning serves as a poignant reminder of the consequences of ignoring divine guidance. Broader implications for believers. 1. Heeding divine warnings. Pilate's wife's dream emphasizes the importance of paying attention to divine warnings, even when they come through unexpected channels. Believers are reminded to remain open to God's messages and act upon them with urgency and faith. 2. Role of women in divine plans. The involvement of Pilate's wife highlights that women have significant roles in God's plans. Her experience encourages the acknowledgement and respect of women's contributions to spiritual and moral guidance. 3. Moral courage. Pilate's wife demonstrates moral courage by speaking out against an injustice. Her example inspires believers to act righteously and courageously, even when faced with opposition or societal norms. Conclusion to Pilate's wife receiving a divine message through a dream. Pilate's wife receiving a divine message through a dream is a profound event that illustrates the significance of dreams as channels of divine communication, the role of unexpected messengers, and the consequences of ignoring divine warnings. Her dream and subsequent warning to Pilate serve as a critical reminder of the need for moral integrity and the importance of heeding God's guidance in all aspects of life. God can use anyone to deliver his warnings. The Bible is replete with instances where God chooses unexpected individuals to deliver his messages and warnings. This theme underscores the sovereignty of God in communicating his will and the inclusivity of his divine plan. The story of Pilate's wife is a prime example, but it is part of a larger biblical narrative that reveals how God can and does use anyone, regardless of their social status, gender, or background, to convey his warnings. Biblical examples of unexpected messengers. 1. Balaam's donkey. Context. In Numbers 22, Balaam, a non-Israelite prophet, is on his way to curse Israel against God's will. When Balaam ignores God's command, God uses Balaam's donkey to deliver a warning. Event. The donkey sees an angel of the Lord blocking the path and stops. After Balaam beats the donkey, God opens the donkey's mouth to speak, and the donkey warns Balaam of the angel's presence and impending judgment. Significance. This event highlights that God can even use animals to deliver his warnings, emphasizing his ultimate control over all creation. 2. Rahab the prostitute. Context. In Joshua 2, Rahab, a prostitute in Jericho, hides 2 Israelite spies sent by Joshua. She acknowledges the power of the God of Israel and helps the spies escape in exchange for her family's safety. Message. Rahab delivers a crucial message to the spies about the fear and demoralization of Jericho's inhabitants, which influences Israel's strategy. Significance. Rahab's faith and actions demonstrate that God can use individuals marginalized by society to fulfill his purposes and deliver key information and warnings. 3. Samuel the child. Context. In 1 Samuel 3, Samuel, a young boy serving under the priest Eli, receives a message from God. Despite his youth and inexperience, God calls Samuel to deliver a warning to Eli about the impending judgment on his house due to his son's sins. Event. Samuel hesitates but ultimately conveys the message to Eli, who accepts it as the word of God. Significance. This story illustrates that God can use the youngest and seemingly least significant individuals to deliver critical warnings and messages. 4. The prophet Jonah. Context. Jonah is a reluctant prophet whom God sends to Nineveh, a non-Israelite city, to warn its inhabitants of impending destruction due to their wickedness. Jonah 1-3. Event. Despite initial resistance and attempts to flee, Jonah eventually delivers God's warning, leading to the repentance of the entire city. Significance. Jonah's story shows that even reluctant and flawed individuals can be used by God to deliver his warnings, resulting in profound transformation. Pilate's wife, an unexpected messenger. 1. Social and political context. Role. Pilate's wife, as a Roman woman, had no official role in her husband's governance and judicial decisions. Her position was primarily domestic and supportive. Intervention. Despite this, she intervenes in a critical moment of Jesus' trial based on a disturbing dream she experienced, urging Pilate to avoid condemning Jesus, whom she recognizes as a just man. 2. Divine choice. Why her? God's choice to communicate through Pilate's wife highlights that divine messages can come from any source, regardless of societal expectations or norms. Her warning carries divine authority despite her lack of official power. Impact. Although Pilate ultimately does not heed her warning, her intervention adds to his internal conflict and underscores the injustice of the trial, emphasizing the gravity of ignoring divine warnings. Lessons for believers. 1. Inclusivity of God's call. Everyone's role. God's use of various individuals to deliver his messages illustrates that everyone, regardless of their background or status, has the potential to be an instrument of God's will. This inclusivity encourages all believers to be attentive and obedient to God's call. 2. Recognizing divine warnings. Attentiveness. Believers are reminded to stay alert to God's messages, which can come from unexpected sources. It encourages an open-mindedness to God's communication through diverse channels, including dreams, visions, people, and even circumstances. Responsiveness. The stories of unexpected messengers urge believers to respond promptly and faithfully to divine warnings, understanding the potential consequences of ignoring them. 3. Moral courage. Taking action. Pilate's wife's intervention, despite her societal role, exemplifies moral courage. It inspires believers to act righteously and deliver God's messages, even when it involves stepping out of their comfort zones or challenging societal norms. Conclusion. The narrative of God using anyone to deliver his warnings is a powerful testament to his sovereignty and the boundless scope of his divine plan. From animals and marginalized individuals to young children and reluctant prophets, God's choice of messengers transcends human expectations. The story of Pilate's wife adds to this rich tapestry, demonstrating that God's messages can come through the most unexpected channels and emphasizing the importance of heeding divine warnings. This theme encourages believers to remain open, attentive, and courageous in their faith journey, ready to act as vessels of God's will. Analyzing the message given to Pilate's wife, have nothing to do with that just man. The message Pilate's wife sends to her husband during Jesus' trial is both brief and profound. Found in Matthew 27 verse 19, it says, "Have nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him." This message is rich in significance and warrants a detailed analysis to understand its implications. 1. Recognition of Jesus' innocence. That just man. Meaning, by referring to Jesus as a just man, Pilate's wife acknowledges Jesus' innocence and righteousness. The term just, Greek, dikaios, conveys a sense of moral and ethical purity. Implication. This recognition contrasts sharply with the accusations brought against Jesus by the Jewish leaders. Pilate's wife's description of Jesus emphasizes his blamelessness, reinforcing the injustice of the trial. 2. Divine source of the warning. "For I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him." Divine revelation. The suffering she mentions is significant as it implies the dream was not just any dream, but a deeply disturbing and vivid one, likely understood to be a divine message. In biblical times, dreams were often seen as a means of divine communication. Emotional impact. The intensity of her experience, "suffered many things," suggests that the dream was compelling enough to prompt immediate action. This indicates the seriousness of the warning and the urgency she felt to convey it. 3. Instruction to avoid involvement. Have nothing to do with. Direct command. The phrase is a clear, imperative instruction. It advises Pilate to completely disassociate himself from the judgment and condemnation of Jesus. Preventive measure. This warning aims to prevent Pilate from making a grave mistake. It suggests that involvement in condemning Jesus would have severe consequences, aligning with the divine origin of the dream. 4. Moral and ethical dimensions. Moral responsibility. Pilate's dilemma. The message adds to Pilate's internal conflict. He is already hesitant about condemning Jesus and perceives him as innocent. Matthew 27 verses 23 to 24. His wife's message reinforces his moral reservations. Ethical standpoint. Pilate's wife's intervention underscores the ethical imperative to avoid participating in an unjust act. Her message reflects a profound understanding of justice and righteousness. 5. Implications of ignoring the warning. Consequences. Divine judgment. By conveying a divine warning, the message implies that ignoring it would not only be morally wrong, but could also invite divine retribution or consequence. Historical perspective. Historically, Pilate's decision to proceed with the crucifixion, despite various warnings, including his wife's, highlights the tragic outcome of disregarding divine and moral guidance. In conclusion, Pilate's wife's message to her husband is laden with significance. It acknowledges Jesus' innocence, underscores the divine origin of the warning, and presents a clear directive to avoid complicity in an unjust act. This message, set within the context of Jesus' trial, adds depth to the narrative by highlighting the moral and ethical dimensions of Pilate's decision. The implications of ignoring such a warning serve as a poignant reminder of the importance of heeding divine guidance and upholding justice. This episode emphasizes that divine messages often come with profound moral imperatives and potential consequences, urging individuals to act with righteousness and integrity. Consider the urgency and gravity of the warning. The warning given by Pilate's wife to her husband during Jesus' trial is imbued with a profound sense of urgency and gravity. This message, conveyed in Matthew 27 verse 19, holds significant weight both in the immediate context of the trial and in its broader theological implications. Understanding the urgency and gravity of this warning requires delving into several key aspects. 1. Immediate context of the trial. High-stakes situation. Political pressure. Pilate was under immense pressure from Jewish leaders and the crowd demanding Jesus' crucifixion. The decision he faced was not just a legal one, but was fraught with political and social implications. Timing. The timing of the message, delivered while Pilate was sitting on the judgment seat, underscores its urgency. It interrupts a critical moment, emphasizing the need for immediate consideration. Pilate's internal conflict. Previous hesitations. Pilate had already expressed doubts about condemning Jesus, repeatedly stating that he found no fault in him, Luke 23 verse 4, John 18 verse 38. Reinforcement. The warning from his wife adds a personal and divine dimension to his hesitations, reinforcing the gravity of the situation. 2. Divine origin and emotional intensity. Supernatural revelation. Disturbing dream. The fact that Pilate's wife suffered many things in a dream suggests a powerful and unsettling experience. In biblical tradition, such dreams are often seen as direct communications from God. Divine urgency. Dreams in the Bible that involve suffering or intense emotions often signify urgent divine messages. Examples include Joseph's dreams in the New Testament and the dreams of Pharaoh and Nebuchadnezzar in the Old Testament. Emotional weight. Immediate action. The emotional intensity of the dream compelled Pilate's wife to act swiftly and interrupt her husband. This highlights the dream's urgency and the perceived immediacy of the threat or warning. 3. Moral and ethical dimensions. Recognition of innocence. That just man. Referring to Jesus as a just man underscores the moral and ethical implications of the warning. It highlights the injustice of condemning an innocent person. Moral imperative. The message carries a strong ethical imperative, urging Pilate to avoid complicity in an unjust act. Potential consequences. Divine consequences. The divine origin of the dream implies severe consequences for ignoring the warning. Biblical history is replete with examples where ignoring divine messages leads to significant repercussions, e.g., Pharaoh's hardened heart in Exodus, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis. 4. Historical and theological implications. Crucial moment in salvation history. Significance of the trial and subsequent crucifixion of Jesus are pivotal events in Christian theology. Pilate's role in this process is critical, and his decision has far-reaching implications. Messianic prophecy. The fulfillment of messianic prophecies hinges on these events. The warning adds a layer of complexity to Pilate's decision-making process, highlighting the profound theological stakes. Legacy of Pilate. Historical judgment. Pilate's decision, influenced by various factors including his wife's warning, is scrutinized throughout history. The urgency and gravity of the warning emphasize the moral weight of his choice and its lasting impact. Moral reflection. For believers, Pilate's ultimate decision serves as a point of reflection on the importance of heeding divine guidance and the consequences of moral failure. 5. Broader lessons for believers. Heeding divine warnings. Openness to divine messages. The urgency of the warning serves as a reminder for believers to remain open to divine messages, even when they come from unexpected sources or at inconvenient times. Responsiveness. The gravity of the warning highlights the importance of responding promptly and appropriately to divine guidance. Courage to act. Moral courage. Pilate's wife's intervention exemplifies moral courage. Believers are encouraged to act righteously, even in difficult and high-pressure situations. Ethical responsibility. The episode underscores the ethical responsibility individuals have when confronted with clear moral choices and divine warnings. Conclusion. The urgency and gravity of the warning given by Pilate's wife are profound and multifaceted. The immediate context of Jesus' trial, the divine and emotional weight of the dream, the moral and ethical dimensions, and the broader historical and theological implications all contribute to the significance of this message. For Pilate, The warning represented a critical divine intervention at a pivotal moment, urging him to avoid an unjust act. For believers, it serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of heeding divine guidance and acting with moral integrity. Examining Pilate's reaction to his wife's message. The reaction of Pontius Pilate to his wife's urgent message during the trial of Jesus is a complex and pivotal moment. Understanding Pilate's response involves exploring the immediate context, his internal conflict, the political and social pressures he faced, and the ultimate outcome of his decision. 1. Immediate context and message content. Pilate's position and authority. Role. Pilate was the Roman governor of Judea, responsible for maintaining order and administering justice. His position required balancing Roman law with local customs and appeasing both the Roman authorities and the Jewish population. Message content. Pilate's wife sent a message saying, "Have nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things today in a dream because of him." Matthew 27 verse 19 NKJV. This message interrupted Pilate while he was presiding over Jesus' trial, adding urgency and a personal dimension to his deliberations. Nature of the warning. Divine origin. The disturbing dream experienced by Pilate's wife suggests a divine source, imparting a sense of urgency and gravity to the message. Recognition of innocence. Describing Jesus as a just man highlights his innocence and the moral imperative for Pilate to avoid participating in an unjust act. 2. Pilate's internal conflict. Existing doubts. Initial hesitation. Pilate had already expressed doubts about condemning Jesus, repeatedly stating that he found no basis for the charges against him. John 18 verse 38. Luke 23:4, 14-15. Fear and uncertainty. Pilate's internal conflict is evident in his attempts to avoid making a decisive judgment, such as sending Jesus to Herod, Luke 23 verse 7, and offering to release Jesus as part of the Passover custom, Matthew 27 verses 15-18. Influence of the message. Reinforcement of doubts. His wife's warning likely intensified his existing doubts and fears. The dream's divine origin and emotional weight added a new layer of urgency and moral responsibility. Fear of divine retribution. Pilate's awareness of the potential divine consequences for ignoring such a warning would have increased his anxiety and hesitation. 3. Political and social pressures. Pressure from Jewish leaders. Demand for crucifixion. The chief priests and elders were adamant in their demand for Jesus' crucifixion, creating a tense and volatile situation. Matthew 27 verses 20-23. Accusations of disloyalty. They leveraged political pressure, implying that failing to act against Jesus could be seen as disloyalty to Caesar. John 19 verse 12. This threat put Pilate's position and loyalty to Rome at stake. Pressure from the crowd. Public outcry. The growing agitation of the crowd demanding Jesus' crucifixion added to the pressure on Pilate. The crowd's intensity made the situation increasingly difficult to manage without escalating to a potential riot. Balancing act. Maintaining order. As governor, Pilate's primary responsibility was to maintain peace and order. The potential for civil unrest made the decision even more precarious. Political expediency. Pilate's decision-making was influenced by the need to maintain his authority and prevent any accusations of inciting rebellion or being unable to control the province. 4. Ultimate decision and outcome. Symbolic act of hand-washing. Public display. Pilate's act of washing his hands before the crowd was a symbolic gesture to absolve himself of responsibility for Jesus' death. Matthew 27 verse 24. He declared himself innocent of this just person's blood, yet proceeded to authorize the crucifixion. Moral and legal implications. This act reflects Pilate's internal struggle and his attempt to distance himself from the moral and legal ramifications of his decision. It underscores his awareness of Jesus' innocence and the injustice of the situation. Capitulation to pressure. Reluctant approval. Despite his wife's warning and his own misgivings, Pilate ultimately capitulated to the combined pressures of the Jewish leaders and the crowd. He authorized the crucifixion to avoid further unrest and potential repercussions from Rome. Consequences. Pilate's decision had immediate and profound consequences. Jesus was crucified, fulfilling divine prophecy and altering the course of history. Pilate's role in this event has been scrutinized throughout history, often seen as an example of moral failure and the consequences of yielding to unjust demands. 5. Historical and theological reflections. Pilate's legacy. Historical judgment. Pilate's legacy is marked by his role in Jesus' crucifixion. Historical accounts and traditions often portray him as a conflicted and tragic figure who failed to act justly in a moment of crisis. Moral lesson. Pilate's response serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of ignoring divine warnings and yielding to external pressures. It highlights the importance of moral courage and integrity. Theological implications. Fulfillment of prophecy. From a theological perspective, Pilate's actions, despite their moral shortcomings, played a role in the fulfillment of prophecies regarding the Messiah's suffering and death. Divine sovereignty. The episode underscores the sovereignty of God in using human decisions, even flawed ones, to accomplish his divine purposes. Pilate's reaction and the ensuing events were part of a larger divine plan for redemption. Conclusion. Pilate's reaction to his wife's message is a complex interplay of internal conflict, political pressure, and moral considerations. His ultimate decision to authorize Jesus' crucifixion, despite recognizing his innocence and receiving a divine warning, highlights the profound implications of ignoring divine guidance. Pilate's legacy, marked by this pivotal moment, serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of moral courage and the far-reaching consequences of our decisions. Theologically, this event underscores the fulfillment of divine prophecy and the sovereignty of God's plan for redemption. Reflecting on the consequences of Pilate's decision. Pontius Pilate's decision to condemn Jesus to crucifixion, despite recognizing his innocence and receiving warnings, had profound and far-reaching consequences. Examining these consequences offers insights into the moral, historical, and theological implications of Pilate's actions. 1. Historical impact. Crucifixion of Jesus. Pilate's decision directly led to the crucifixion of Jesus, a pivotal event in Christian theology. Jesus' death is viewed as the ultimate sacrifice for humanity's sins and the cornerstone of Christian faith. This event marked a significant turning point in history, shaping the course of Christianity and influencing civilizations for centuries. Legacy of Pilate. Pilate's role in Jesus' crucifixion has left a lasting legacy. Historical accounts and traditions often portray him as a conflicted and tragic figure, remembered for his failure to uphold justice and recognize the truth. Pilate's decision serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of moral compromise and the consequences of yielding to external pressures. 2. Moral and ethical reflection. Failure of moral courage. Pilate's decision reflects a failure of moral courage and leadership. Despite recognizing Jesus' innocence and receiving warnings, he prioritized political expediency and self-preservation over justice and truth. Pilate's moral compromise highlights the moral complexities of governance and the challenges of standing up for what is right in the face of opposition. Question of accountability. Pilate's role in Jesus' crucifixion raises questions about moral accountability and responsibility. While he played a pivotal role in the events leading to Jesus' death, he also faced pressures and constraints beyond his control. Pilate's decision prompts reflection on the nature of moral agency and the factors that influence human decision-making, including societal expectations, political pressures, and personal beliefs. 3. Theological significance. Fulfillment of prophecy. From a theological perspective, Pilate's decision was part of God's larger plan for salvation and redemption. Jesus' crucifixion fulfilled numerous Old Testament prophecies about the suffering and sacrifice of the Messiah. Pilate's role in this divine plan, despite his moral shortcomings, underscores the sovereignty of God and his ability to work through human actions to accomplish his purposes. Symbolism of sacrifice. Jesus' crucifixion, resulting from Pilate's decision, is seen as the ultimate act of sacrificial love and atonement for humanity's sins. It symbolizes God's willingness to suffer and die for the redemption of humanity. Pilate's decision serves as a poignant reminder of the human capacity for injustice and the need for divine intervention to bring about reconciliation and redemption. 4. Personal and collective reflection. Individual accountability. Pilate's decision highlights the importance of individual accountability and moral responsibility. Despite external pressures, each person retains the ability to choose between right and wrong. Pilate's example prompts introspection about the choices we make in our own lives and the ethical principles that guide our actions. Collective responsibility. Pilate's decision also raises questions about collective responsibility and complicity in injustice. The crowds who called for Jesus' crucifixion and the religious leaders who orchestrated it share in the moral culpability for these events. Pilate's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of collective wrongdoing and the importance of speaking out against injustice, even in the face of opposition. Conclusion. Pilate's decision to condemn Jesus to crucifixion had profound consequences, both historically and theologically. It marked a pivotal moment in Christian history, shaping the course of Christianity and influencing civilizations for centuries. Pilate's failure of moral courage and leadership serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of moral compromise and the importance of standing up for justice and truth. Ultimately, Pilate's decision prompts reflection on individual accountability, collective responsibility, and the theological significance of Jesus' sacrificial death for humanity's redemption. The importance of heeding divine warnings in our lives today. In our modern world, where distractions abound and moral dilemmas are increasingly complex, the importance of heeding divine warnings remains as relevant as ever. Just as in biblical times, divine warnings serve as guidance, protection, and opportunities for spiritual growth. Reflecting on their significance can offer valuable insights for navigating life's challenges and making moral decisions. 1. Discernment and spiritual awareness. To be able to recognize divine intervention, divine warnings often come in various forms, such as inner convictions, scriptures, advice from wise mentors, or even unexpected events. Developing spiritual discernment allows individuals to recognize these signals and distinguish them from mere coincidence or human influence. Cultivating a deeper awareness of God's presence and guidance enables individuals to discern divine warnings amidst the noise and distractions of daily life. Listening to the inner voice. Paying attention to one's conscience, often described as the voice of God within, is crucial for discerning divine warnings. This inner guidance can provide clarity in decision-making and alert individuals to potential dangers or moral pitfalls. Practicing mindfulness and self-reflection fosters receptivity to divine warnings, helping individuals to tune into their inner spiritual compass. 2. Guidance for ethical decision-making, navigating moral dilemmas. In a world filled with moral ambiguity and conflicting values, divine warnings offer moral clarity and guidance. They illuminate the ethical implications of our choices and steer us away from actions that compromise our integrity or harm others. Heeding divine warnings empowers individuals to make decisions aligned with principles of justice, compassion, and righteousness, even when facing pressure or temptation to act otherwise. Preventing harm and consequences. Divine warnings often serve as preemptive measures to prevent harm or avert potential consequences. Whether in personal relationships, professional endeavors, or moral dilemmas, they provide timely insights and warnings to steer individuals away from harm's way. Ignoring divine warnings can lead to regrettable outcomes, including damaged relationships, missed opportunities for growth, or even dire consequences for oneself and others. 3. Spiritual growth and transformation. Opportunities for redemption and growth. Divine warnings not only protect individuals from harm, but also offer opportunities for redemption and spiritual growth. They invite individuals to reflect on their actions, repent from wrongdoing, and realign with God's will. Embracing divine warnings with humility and openness fosters personal transformation, deepens spiritual maturity, and strengthens one's relationship with God. Strengthening trust and faith. Responding obediently to divine warnings builds trust in God's providence and faithfulness. It demonstrates a willingness to submit to God's guidance and sovereignty, even when it challenges personal desires or worldly wisdom. Over time, heeding divine warnings cultivates a deeper intimacy with God, as individuals experience firsthand the loving care and guidance of their Heavenly Father. 4. Community and societal impact. Promoting justice and compassion. As individuals heed divine warnings and align their actions with God's values, they contribute to building communities characterized by justice, compassion, and righteousness. Their choices ripple outward, inspiring others to do likewise and fostering positive social change. Collectively heeding divine warnings can address systemic injustices, promote reconciliation, and foster a culture of empathy and solidarity within society. Cultivating a culture of accountability. In communities and institutions, heeding divine warnings fosters a culture of accountability and integrity. It encourages leaders and decision-makers to prioritize ethical considerations and heed the voice of conscience in their decision-making processes. By upholding principles of truth and righteousness, individuals and communities create environments where divine guidance is valued and honored, leading to flourishing and well-being for all. Conclusion. In a world filled with uncertainty and moral complexity, heeding divine warnings remains essential for navigating life's challenges and living in alignment with God's will. Through discernment, ethical decision-making, spiritual growth, and positive societal impact, individuals and communities can experience the transformative power of divine guidance in their lives today. By prioritizing attentiveness to God's voice and obedience to His promptings, individuals can walk confidently on the path of righteousness, knowing that they are guided and protected by a loving and faithful God. The historical accounts of what happened to Pontius Pilate after the crucifixion of Jesus Christ are varied and somewhat speculative, as there is no single definitive record of his later life. However, there are several traditions and historical mentions that provide a range of possibilities. According to some historical sources, Pilate faced difficulties after his tenure as governor of Judea. Josephus, a first-century Jewish historian, mentions that Pilate was ordered back to Rome by the Roman Emperor Caligula due to complaints from the local Jewish population about his harsh governance. It is suggested that Pilate was recalled around 36 to 37 AD, and he might have faced charges of mismanagement. Another tradition, recorded by Eusebius, an early Christian historian writing in the 4th century, states that Pilate was exiled to Gaul, modern-day France, where he eventually committed suicide. This narrative suggests that Pilate fell out of favor with the Roman authorities and ended his life in despair. There are some Christian traditions, particularly within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which hold that Pilate converted to Christianity and was later venerated as a saint. This view is not widely accepted in mainstream Christian traditions and is considered more legendary than historical. In Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews, it is mentioned that Pilate was involved in a confrontation with a Samaritan prophet, which led to more unrest and ultimately his recall to Rome by the Syrian governor, Vitellius. This account does not provide details on Pilate's fate after his recall. Given the lack of consistent historical evidence, it is challenging to determine the exact outcome of Pilate's life after Jesus' crucifixion. The most credible historical sources suggest that his recall to Rome was due to political and administrative failures, and the tradition of his exile and possible suicide is one of the more accepted theories among historians.